Hi, this is Ofoy Murray, the digital reader, and today I'm going to be doing the battery life challenge for the iPad Air 4th generation. That's the iPad Air that came out in 2020. Now, as with all of my battery life challenges, just a couple little bits of housekeeping. I read every day for at least an hour if I can. I track the days it took me to finish the book. I track the actual hours that I read the book. I track the battery percentage start and finish of the book. And I track the battery life from 100% to 10%. I just feel like going to 10% for me is the most realistic. I generally don't take any of my electronic devices down to 0%. And generally with the LCD devices I'm using, and well, basically any type of LCD or OLED, I'm generally going to be tracking the regular battery life, and then if it has an energy saving setting or a low power setting, I'm going to track the battery life on that in most cases. I do have a device that's upcoming where I'm probably not going to track the regular battery life because the main selling point is its low power setting. So for the iPad, to go to the low power battery setting, you would go to settings, then you would go to battery, and then from battery, you would click on the low power setting. And you know that you're in low power setting because in the upper right, the little battery percentage, it usually is white. It would change to kind of an orangish yellow if you're in low power mode. For regular mode, I read Century Blade by Rob J. Hayes. I took it from 100% to 96%, and that was for 15 pages, and I read 0.2 hours over one day. Then I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. That took me from 96% to 49%, and that was 387 pages, and I read that for 6.15 hours over 5 days. Then I read Legend Born by Tracy Dion, and that took me from 48% to 11%, and that was 159 pages, and I read for 3.5 hours over 2 days. So for the regular iPad Air's battery settings, the battery lasted 8 days, and I read for 9.85 hours over those 8 days. For the iPad Air with the low power settings, I read Legend Born by Tracy Dion, and that took me from 100% to 53%, and I read 352 pages, and that was 6.3 hours over 6 days. Then I read The Adventures of Sam Spade and Other Stories by Van Allen Plexico. That took me from 50% to 38%. That was 108 pages, and I read for 3.5 hours over 5 days. And then I read Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice, and that took me from 38% to 10%, and that was 109 pages, and I read for 2.75 hours over 3 days. For the iPad Air's low power setting, the total battery life, it lasted for 14 days, and over that 14 days, I read for 12.55 hours. This low power setting definitely seemed to make a difference. I got almost an extra 3 hours out of it. So I generally am finding for the LCD and OLED devices that the low power settings aren't night and day, but you're generally going to get about 20 to 25% more battery life when you're using it as an e-reader. So looking at the battery life for the devices I've tested so far, the Pocketbook InkPad 3 Color still is at the top with 34.45 hours. And then you have the Pocketbook Verse Pro Color with 31.5 hours. The Books page, surprisingly, I got 27 hours out of that. And then the iPad Air in normal power mode was almost 10 hours. And in low power mode was almost 12.5 hours. And then at the bottom, you have your iPlay Mini NEF with 6.5 hours on regular mode and then the iPlay Mini NEF with battery saver on, I got about 7.5 hours. So right now I'm working on the TCL Nextpaper 50, and I'm using their max ink mode, which is their super low power setting, and I'll see how far I get on that. I probably won't use the regular power setting because the main selling point of it is the max ink mode. So check with me next month for another battery life challenge on a device I have. And until then, this is Ofori, the digital reader, and keep reading.